Hey there. Sorry, I'm running a few minutes behind today, but I think I almost made it by 10. Walter is here today, joining me for the beginning of the live cast. Walter, you want to say hi? Any first impressions? Any thoughts? No? Nothing? Well, Walter says hi to Ian and Chad, the first two to pop into the live cast here. I hope you're doing well and having a great Wednesday, April 10th, 2024. It's been a couple days since the Eclipse, which I'll mention today. I saw Ghostbusters recently. I'll talk about that a little bit today. And my video this past Sunday was about overlooked games. I'll talk about that a little bit today as well. Garrett, another Ian is here. Dominic is here as well. Oh, Ian says that he got his April Fool's Day chocolate in the mail. I've heard a few people getting their chocolate in the mail. Thank you all for giving that a try. Looks like Walter's got to go do some stuff. Thank you, Walter. So I hope you're enjoying the chocolate. That is probably my chocolate of the day today as well. I am enjoying that chocolate so far as well. I think Crown Candy did a wonderful job with it. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. Hopefully you enjoy it too. That's what's most important. So that is my chocolate of the day. I'm wearing my Peregrine Falcon shirt from Natalia, one of the artists of Wyrmspan. She sells shirts with different birds on them. And this is my favorite bird just in general and at Wyrmspan. So thought I'd wear that for today's live cast. Good morning, Tony. Thanks for joining us today. So what is going on? So I saw Ghostbusters recently, the new Ghostbusters movie. I know I'm maybe a few weeks behind the release date, but I really enjoy seeing movies at the Alamo Drafthouse here in St. Louis. It's a fairly new theater for St. Louis. It's one of these nice theaters where you go and you can order food and drinks while you watch the movie, and it just makes the experience more special for me. I really enjoy that. And so I had a good time. I had a good time watching the movie. I thought they did a pretty good job of mixing the nostalgia factor with the newer cast for the two newer Ghostbusters movie. So I enjoyed that. Good morning, Miles. Ray, thanks for popping in today. Speaking of the Eclipse, I know my friend Miles here got to see the Eclipse in the totality area. I stayed in St. Louis where we had about 99% coverage of the sun on Monday. But I have some Megan and some other friends, and Miles and his family got to experience the actual totality, which I've heard was pretty amazing. It was also pretty neat here in St. Louis. Like today is kind of it's a little dark in here today. I don't know if you really tell. The camera picks up light pretty well. But I was sitting in my office planning to go outside around 2 o'clock when the eclipse was going to happen. But I didn't need my alarm because that condo just got really, really dark. And dark in a different way. I don't know. It felt different than like a cloudy day for some reason. I don't know. I can't really describe it. Just the light was a little bit different in the form of darkness that it took. And so Walter and I went out on the patio. And out on the patio, the light still looked a little surreal, but it didn't seem all that different outside. Like I could hear nature change a little bit. Definitely got a little bit cooler outside. And the light was different, but it was really inside the condo that I could tell the biggest difference. So I kept going like in and outside of the condo to feel the difference. And I'd go back inside and I'd be like, oh, I should be outside for the eclipse. And I'd go back outside. And Walter was very calm. Walter did not seem affected at all by it. So I'm curious if any of you had an eclipse experience on Monday and how that experience was for you. Chad says that he just watched the recent X-Men 97 show, and he says he really loves the writing on that show. I've only watched the first episode so far, but I enjoyed the first episode, and I'm glad to hear the writing holds up for the remaining episodes. I need to keep watching that. Dominic saw the movie Monkey Man, and he thought it was great. He says, good if you like a Taken-like action revenge movie. I've heard, I saw great reviews of it. Apparently it was Dev Patel's first directorial or his directorial debut. I heard he did a great job with it. So I'm glad you enjoyed that. Here's some people chiming in. Miles says the totality was really cool. Board Game Family Man says that they saw it in Northeast Ohio. And Aaron got to see it at 95%. Julie went to Perryville, and she says her son's mind was blown. She says it was awesome as 2017, which I must have missed 2017. I don't know how I missed that one. Dark 360-degree sunset, shimmering circle in the sky. Very cool. I'm glad you all got to experience some form of it, whether it was full or partial. Garrett has a recommendation for a rogue light game, which I recently learned. Rogue light is where after you die in a run on these digital style games, you get to Walter's playing with his mouse over here. You get to start a new run, but you carry over some elements, unlike rogue-like games where you don't. He says it's called Let's Revolution, and it's a turn-based game on a grid that is reminiscent of Minesweeper and Into the Breach. Well, I will make a note of that, Garrett, on my digital games list. Where's my digital games list? Here we go. Let's Revolution. Thank you for that recommendation. Yeah, that sounds awesome. A few others are talking about their Eclipse experience here. The other topic I have here today, in the title at least, are overlooked games. So this was the topic of my Sunday video this past week. And actually, I don't really have a question of the day today, so maybe it'll come up as we think about it. But I'm a little bit ahead on things like Sunday videos and other topics. But for overlooked games, this was a topic. I was joined by 3 guests on Sunday to talk about games that are overlooked or not often talked about, or games that maybe you have in your collection, but you've never seen in anyone else's collection. It's fun to talk about those types of games. Oftentimes they were older, but some of them are fairly newer games. I'm curious if any of you have any games like that, where a game that's in your collection that you love, but you never see anyone else talk about it. You never see anyone else have it in their collection, but you really love this game and you love sharing it with people. I'm glancing over at Walter right now because he has his mouse toy, but it's stuck between some chairs and he's desperately trying to get it. Let me get this toy out for him real quick because I know he wants to play with it. Hey, bud, can I get that out for you? Okay, there you go. Okay, got Walter's mouse toy out. William got to see 90% in Kansas City, but he said in 2017 that the totality was in Kansas City, which was even more impressive for him. Ben loves Hades as his absolute favorite roguelike game. So Ben, I've heard that from a lot of people. I've heard great things about every aspect of Hades. The reason that I haven't tried it, and it didn't make my list for like the top 10 digital roguelikes that I think tabletop gamers would like. And call me out on this if you disagree. But as a tabletop gamer, I am not good with the and really, this isn't related to me being a tabletop gamer. This is related to me not being much of a video gamer. I am not good with the dexterity elements and like the quick action elements that come in a game like Hades, from what I've heard about Hades. Whereas a game like Slay the Spire, I can completely take my time. I can look at my hand. I'm not worrying about any timing elements in terms of how quickly I can use a controller and things like that. So even though I've heard great things about Hades and what it does on many levels, that has kept me away from trying it. So let me know if I'm wrong about that. I'm open to being wrong and trying it anyway. Ray says he learned a fun Dune-related Eclipse fact. Speaking of which, all the desert scenes of the new Dune movies were shot with natural light, including the eclipse at the beginning of part 2. That was a partial total eclipse visible in Jordan in 2022 while they were shooting. Oh, that's really cool. They happened to be there at that right time, or that they scheduled it to be there at that time. That's really neat. Also, Ray, I'll throw in there, I learned, even though a lot of the focus in the U.S., especially in the Midwestern U.S. this past month really has been on this solar eclipse, there are eclipses that are happening around the world at other times. Like there's one happening in Argentina later this year. I saw this article on CNN that listed like different total eclipse spots around the world. They happen not frequently, but they happen every couple of years, really. So if you're willing to travel for it or schedule a vacation around it, you can see a total eclipse at a number of wonderful places, including I saw New Zealand on the list. I highly recommend going to New Zealand. That one's coming up in a couple of years, I believe. Yeah, so I thought that was. We're very, in the U.S., we're very focused on the U.S. and what's happening here, but there is a whole world of things that happen outside of the U.S. too. Okay, so Ben says my concerns about Hades are a little valid. He says there are definitely play styles that allow for more casual play. Honestly, the best part of Hades was the story. It was so fun that he actually looked forward to dying to advance the story. That's a neat. I like that plug for Hades there, Ben. That even if I'm not good at the controller aspect of it or the dexterity, the speed aspects, that I might still enjoy the story. I heard the music was really good too. I love good music in games. Tonka says, talking about Mask Men, you talked about it, but it's very rarely mentioned. This is the overlooked games, but it's very rarely mentioned in the shedding or oink conversation. That's a good point. You're right. Those are game company oink and shedding games in general, and Mask Men very rarely comes up. I have played it. I had a good time with it. But it doesn't come up all that often. Oh, Ian has the reminder. Thank you, Ian. I made it 9 minutes in before remembering that I need to show the comments. So Chad says, I'll start with Chad's comment about overlooked game, Tang Garden and Mechs versus Minions. They don't get talked about enough, in my opinion. I see a lot of people have Mechs versus Minions, but don't hear much about it at all. Yeah, that's interesting. I loved playing through the Mechs versus Minions campaign, but after that, I think I gave it to a friend. But I wonder if that is partially the case for some campaign games or campaign games a little bit more than other games. Josh mentions a game called Quartz, a great press your luck game from 2015 that I never see. I think I need to check that out because I love push your luck, press your luck games. Also, I love to introduce new players via Dungeon Mayhem. Lots of asymmetrical decks with super simple gameplay. Yeah, I haven't tried either of those games. I need to try those. Merlin's Manor says, overlooked game is Dinogenics. It's an awesome dinosaur park building game with worker placement. I have heard great things about this too. But you're right. I when I hear about it, I hear great things, but I don't hear about it all that often. Let's see. Super Keener says, what's my favorite disc golf putter? So I don't have a full answer to that because I for a while, and I still putt with this a little bit, but I've been using it more for approach shots. The Stonemaier Games Green Gully disc, which is a bullfrog. That was my putter for a while, but I've switched to a short range putter. I still use that disc, but for short range, I've switched to a putter that I got at an event here in St. Louis. And I don't know the name of the putter because it has like a custom St. Louis related stamp on it. So I don't actually know. It isn't an Innova disc. The disc has a really nice grippy feel to it. And yeah, I've enjoyed putting with that, but I'm sorry, I don't know the name of it. But Bullfrog is one that I still use for slightly longer putts or putts where I need to really go around something. Yeah. Garrett says, how's my trip planning for Japan going? I mentioned that I'm going to Japan later this year. Japan, I've studied abroad in Japan 3 times when I was younger. And Megan has never been. And then we have 2 close friends, one of whom also studied abroad, and her partner, our friend Adam, has not gone either. So we're going to go as a small group to Japan later this year. And we are preparing. We have kind of an ongoing Google Doc where we're thinking about what to do. We've bought the plane tickets. We played Let's Go to Japan recently to look at the different ideas that are in that game. And Garrett says he saw an article on Going Analog where they said, Let's Go to Japan shaped their entire trip. Really, it is an excellent trip planning tool, I think. Just to give you ideas of the different types of things that you can experience in Japan that are a little out of the ordinary that maybe you can't find everywhere in the U.S. Or if you can find it in the U.S., it's somewhat rare. Like there are ramen shops here in the U.S., but ramen is everywhere in Japan. And I think that's part of the fun of going to a country where you know a little bit of that food, but to try a bunch of different types of ramen and even different regions in Japan, you can see very different flavor profiles. Ben says, will you be going to Origins this year? I won't personally be going to Origins. My coworker, Dave, who's in charge of conventions, I don't know. Let's see if he is going. I'll pull up our website real quick. So I'm looking at our website and here, I'll pull it up on the other screen so you can see where I navigate to get here. Okay, so we'll go to events and conventions. Doesn't look like Origins is on the list. Does look like there's a weird paragraph break right here, though. I'll have to fix that later. But yeah, actually, this is part of the news that I wanted to mention today. So Geekway, a convention coming up a little bit sooner than Origins, is Geekway to the West. And this is in St. Louis. What is it, May 16th through 19th? I will definitely be there. I'm there just to play games with anyone who wants to play games with me. Typically, new to me games are ideal, but I'm happy to play any game, really. And we are doing local pickup at Geekway. So if you are attending Geekway this year and you have something to order from the Stonemaier Games web store leading up until May 17th, which is even during the convention. So starting April 15th, going through May 17th, anything you order on the Stonemaier Games web store, if you want, you can choose Geekway pickup, and you can pick it up at Geekway to the West instead of paying for shipping for it. So that's an option if you're looking to get something from Stonemaier Games, you want to avoid paying for shipping. You can pick it up from Geekway to the West, or from our booth at Geekway to the West specifically. Joshua says that he's also really enjoying Let's Go to Japan. He says it's a gorgeous product and a fun experience. I agree. Yeah, it was a really, really well put together game. Aaron is echoing the same thing. He got to teach it over the weekend and had a similar experience. Merlin's Manor, we're talking about Quartz, has a retheme, which is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, a gemstone mining game, which we got from a board game market. Oh, that's cool. There's an updated version of it, at least. Which one? Do you have a recommendation of which one to try if I sought it out to give it a try? And Krista says, once you get back from your trip, will you share your trip plan details? She's planning a trip there as well. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I'm also happy to just give recommendations in general. I know Kyoto the best because I studied there for 8 months, but I also studied 2 summers in Hiroshima. So I know Hiroshima pretty well, but I was a little bit younger then. I didn't have the same sense of exploration that I did when I lived in Kyoto. But yeah, that's definitely, I'll blog about it on my personal blog, jameystegmeyer.com. And I do actually have some articles about Japan there if you want to check those out too. Yeah. So what have you all been playing lately? Have you played anything really fun? I see Aaron mentioned Let's Go to Japan. He just played that recently. I think I've only played one game over the last few days, and that was Forest Shuffle on Board Game Arena last Wednesday. I am hoping to play Dune Imperium Uprising again this Wednesday. I've only played it once so far, but my friend Pete's going to bring it to game night tonight, I think. So hopefully we'll get in a game of that. That's one that I love Dune Imperium, and I really enjoyed my first play of Dune Imperium Uprising, but I didn't explore all the different elements of it. I kind of focused on, mainly I just focused on the spies. And so I want to focus on some of the other areas. Maybe try the contracts, maybe try sandworms a little bit. We'll see about that. Ben's enjoying Sky Team, Darth Grogu, played Cascadia and Ticket to Ride. I see All My Guitars 28 played Dwarf Romantic and Rolling Realms. I love to hear Rolling Realms. Actually, I do have some Rolling Realms news too. I'm glad you mentioned that. So Rolling Realms, I'm doing live plays this week. I did the first live play yesterday. I'm doing round 2 today here on YouTube and on the Rolling Realms Facebook group. And I announced yesterday one of the new realms. So I'll show you one of the new realms. We have a Terraforming Mars promo realm coming out in a few weeks. And today at 3 o'clock Central Time, I will reveal another Rolling Realms promo that will be releasing in a few weeks as well. Aaron's playing Let's Go to Japan, like he mentioned, Come Sail Away, and Thunder Road Vendetta. Joshua just started playing Frosthaven. Tough game when you have minimal communication before playing cards. I bet that's one of the neat challenges about Frosthaven and Gloomhaven. Board Game Family Man just got the print and play of Tiny Epic Cthulhu. He hasn't played it yet, and he's saying he enjoys the Tiny Epic games a lot in general. Jeff and Monica played Ink and Gold, one of my favorite push your luck games, Ink and Gold, and a few rounds of The Crew. So Clover as well here from All My Guitars 28. Garrett played Skyrise, absolutely blown away by the quality of the production, though it is the deluxe version. The standard version also looks amazing. Yeah, I think Rockslade Games does a wonderful job with the aesthetic of their games. And Merlin's Manor just started playing Jurassic World Legacy of Isla Nublar. Got a tapestry back to the table for the first time in a while and played a zombie game called City of the Living. Oh, interesting. It's a little nice little City of the Dead instead of City of the Dead, City of the Living. That's a neat title. Ben says he loves some Terraforming Mars. Nate is chiming in about the Eclipse. Oh, played Eclipse Second Dawn and Endless Winter on Monday night to celebrate the solar eclipse. I like that. I mainly just ate Eclipse-themed food, but playing an Eclipse-themed game would have been perfect for the Eclipse. I wonder, did the Eclipse publisher do anything special for the Eclipse? Any, I don't know, variant or promo or anything like that? I mostly just ate local desserts. So I had special Jenny's ice cream. I had an Eclipse cupcake from a local cupcakery called The Cup. And I had a moon pie from Cacao Chocolate, another local chocolate place. Hilda has been playing Oros for a few days. The constantly changing location of the island tiles was an interesting and puzzly challenge. I've heard really good things about Oros. I'm glad you're enjoying it. And Aaron is trying to beat normal Ravel mode in Wyrmspan. I haven't managed to win in 3 games, but it's a blast. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, I continually see more and more people join the Wyrmspan Facebook group. It's wonderful to welcome people into that community. And I love seeing people play it and talk about the game. Thank you to all the retailers who have done many different things for releasing Wyrmspan and showing it to people and teaching it to people ever since the March 29th retail release. Corey got his first play of Wyrmspan as well, and he got Viticulture to the table too. 2 Stonemaier Games. That's awesome. Thank you, Corey. Someone actually mentioned Tang Garden a little bit earlier. Rocky mentioned it, brought Tang Garden out after a while. Someone mentioned it in the category of like overlooked games. And he says he finally tried one of the Ghost Stories expansion scenarios, and it was a lot of fun. That's great. I think I've only played Ghost Stories one time, and I understood the lore around it, that people said it was a really, really tough cooperative game to win. And it was one of those games where only bad things happen and you just struggle against it, but struggle against it in creative ways. Yeah, neat game. Let's see. Oh, Ben says he's doing a Learn to Play Wyrmspan event coming up here in the next few days. That's awesome, Ben. Thank you for doing that. Is that at a particular store or place or just at your house? If it's a public place, feel free to let me know in the or mention it in the comments in case other people in that area want to join in. Josh has been loving the White Castle. That's been on my list to play for quite some time. That's on my Geekway to play list for sure. He loves solving the puzzle of optimizing only 9 turns. That is a tough puzzle. And as you say that, I'm going to pull up my personal blog over here and show you the games that I am most hoping to play at Geekway to the West. Yeah, so here is my list over here. I'm going to take your comment down while I talk about it, Josh, but let's see. There we go. So the top 10 games I want to play Geekway to the West in no particular order are The Witcher Old World, Rurik, Imperial Miners, Waffle Time, The White Castle, which if I was ranking them would probably be at the very top, but I am excited to play all these games. Come together for great things about the positive player interaction of that. Terrascape, Thunder Road, really Thunder Road Vendetta is what I'm referring to, Votes for Women, and Beacon Patrol. And I've added some other ones to the list: Fool, Distilled, Summer Camp, Artemis Project, Station Fall, and Looter Rush. I'd like to play any of those. But yeah, these top 10 in particular, I'm really, really hoping to try at Geekway to the West. I found it's a great place to learn and play a game, especially if someone already knows the game and loves the game and wants to play it with me or wants to teach it to me. So I'm really excited to play these games and give them a try at Geekway to the West and then decide whether or not I want to add them to my collection. I think conventions are pretty good with that. So if any of you are attending Geekway to the West and you have and love any of these games and want to play it with me, I'd love to do that. I do have takers on a few of them already, but nothing. I don't really schedule anything for Geekway. I just kind of loosely plan for it. Ian says he's been playing Azul, Beacon Patrol, Tussie Mussy, Rove, and King Domino, Carcassonne River, Valley Glassworks. Lots of different games for Ian here. That's awesome, Ian. Ben says that Odd Willow's Game Haven is his wife's store. Awesome. Thank you, Ben, for sharing that. They're doing a Learn to Play event for Wyrmspan coming up in the very near future. And he says it's in Mukwonago, Wisconsin. Mukwonago. I'm sorry about that, Wisconsin. Aaron's working on tax season and has to take off. But thank you for popping in and saying hi, Aaron, today. Good luck with the taxes. Josh says that White Castle is very addictive. Melissa says, we've been playing the Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. We've played most of the campaigns already, but we're introducing someone new. Always great to see someone else enjoy a game you love. And isn't that one of the most heartwarming things for me, when I share a game I love with somebody else and they also enjoy it. And so I'm glad you're having a great replay experience with Journeys in Middle-earth. Some really neat mechanisms in that one. I've only played it once, but I had a good time with it. Josh says, how inspiring is Gloomhaven buttons and bugs for a publisher like you? Being able to distill such a big box game into a literally palm-sized box seems incredibly challenging. That is a really interesting challenge. And I think it's I don't know, I'm impressed by it. I haven't played it, but I've seen photos of just how small it is. And that is impressive to distill such a big experience into a small box, as you say. Yeah, I've been trying to keep box sizes more in mind. There's a lot of the games that we make have so much in them that they need the standard box size that we use for most of our games. And some games even need more than that, like Tapestry. But if we can fit a game into a smaller box, I've been trying to do that more often because I think people have limited shelf space. It's easier to travel with a game in a smaller box. And like you said, though, Josh, you almost have to really commit to it and design around it and sometimes sacrifice elements for it. And that's where I have a hard time doing it. I have a hard time sacrificing something that impacts the ease of play. And I'm not saying Buttons and Bugs does this. I don't know it, but I have played smaller games where the user interface has made sacrifices to fit it into a smaller box. And yeah, so that's the hardest part for me as a publisher. Mark is here. He says he's asking what he missed. A lot of different conversations, Mark, about Ghostbusters, about overlooked games, about the Eclipse that happened recently. Let's see, what haven't I talked about already? Oh yeah, well, this is personal, but I I self-diagnosed myself recently to realize that I was having some issues with my elbow because when I play disc golf, I throw forehand. I throw almost only forehand, except for putting. And I realized I've been having some like internal elbow pain. And I think what it is tennis elbow, which I can't recall experiencing before. So if any of you have any good tips about if you've had tennis elbow and you've done any good stretches or exercises to help work around it or get past it, let me know. Currently, I've just been resting. So I haven't played disc golf in a few weeks to not injure that arm. But yeah, something I'm going through recently. I do want to mention that Miniature Market is doing a live stream for Wyrmspan coming up tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So I'm recording this on Wednesday. This will be Thursday, April 11th at 4 o'clock Central Time. I mentioned Miniature Market in particular because they are one of our retailer partners. Also, they are we use them or we hire them, we commission them for warehousing and fulfillment here in the US. So, and plus I'm happy to promote anyone who's doing Wyrmspan or Stonemaier Games related stuff. And they're doing a Wyrmspan live stream at 4 o'clock Central Time tomorrow on Thursday. Other things happening here at Stonemaier Games, mostly a lot of proofreading and play testing recently for products that I can't talk about yet, but that I am excited to talk about in the future. So a lot of looking at, for the proofreading, it's early proofreading. So it's a lot of like looking at the layout and the icons and trying to make sure we choose the most intuitive icons and layout for helping players understand the game. It's a lot of what early proofreading is like, including some great discussions with one of our proofreaders who specializes in accessibility, especially vision-specific accessibility. And so he has a great viewpoint perspective to make sure that we make our games as accessible as possible for those with vision with I don't know what was the word, vision impediments, I guess is one way to say it. Maybe not the most PC way to say it. Jeff and Monica say, "Am I much of a solo gamer? Any recommendations for good campaign games that are easy to run solo?" I am not much of a solo gamer myself. I played very, very few games solo. Most campaign games I play with my partner Megan. We'll play them together. So I might yield to the comments here. If anyone wants to mention any campaign games that they have loved solo, feel free to mention it in the comments here. We did design Charterstone and The Rise of Fenris, the two campaign games that we have to be played, and not just to be played, but to thrive in solo format. So feel free to try either of them. I also really enjoyed Clank Legacy, but I played it with 3 other people, so I can't speak to it in solo form. Let's pull up my list of campaign games to see. I think My City can be played solo. Role Player Adventures, one of my favorite campaign games of all time, I'm sure can be played solo. There's one other one I was thinking of that I have forgotten. But yeah, those are the ones that come to mind off the top of my head. All My Guitars 28 says, "A brace can help for tennis elbow. A friend uses a brace for any physical activity and says it helps." I've heard that I can even use a brace like while I'm working or while I sleep, and that might help it heal faster. So I might try that. Most of what I read about actually like playing a sport with it is just not to do it until the elbow gets better. But maybe I need to then, after it does get better, use a brace so it doesn't get worse again. I need to try that. Joshua says, "Do I have a regular exercise routine? I've had some back trouble lately and haven't been able to get back into disc golf because of it. He may need some exercise tips." I do have a regular exercise routine, and it does involve typically 1 round of disc golf every weekend. Beyond that, though, I have a daily workout routine, which involves just a 5-minute core workout that I intermingle with a short kind of resistance workout. So, for example, I have a pull-up bar. So on one day of the week, I'll do pull-ups this way. Another day of the week, I'll do them this way. So I'll just do some pull-ups. I'll do 3 sets of 8 pull-ups one way. And then between each set, I'll do a little bit of core. And then at the end of it, I run up and down the stairs of my building for around 10 minutes. So I have core plus resistance plus getting my heart rate up for around 10 minutes and using my legs in some way. And it's only about 20 minutes a day. I do it every morning, and it has made a huge difference in my life. If you go back and look at videos of me around 5 to 6 years ago, I didn't notice it, but I was not as healthy as I could have been, I think. And so getting into that routine has really helped me get control of my health. So those things make a big difference for me. And it's just, I needed a way to fit it into my schedule, and that was how I could find a way to fit it into my schedule. Ray says, I can buy a simple armband that is designed for this very purpose. It puts pressure on the strained tendon and relieves the pain, and are easy to find at just about any large store or pharmacy. Maybe I just need to do that. Yeah, I guess I'm hesitant. I've never done that before. I've never worn an armband before, but I will look up. But I'll do a quick search here for tennis elbow brace to see what that does. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I see a number of picks online here already. Thank you for that recommendation. Yeah. Mark says, when he was having pain in his wrist in the past, I had to use a temporary metal cast so that I could have my wrist rest and avoid movement during the healing process. Not sure if that's enough for elbow healing. It might be. I mean, people are mentioning these braces that can make a big difference. I don't think I need to completely mobilize it or immobilize it. But yeah. Matt says he's been going to an osteopath for tennis elbow help. An osteopath. That's great. Yeah, thank you for. I'm sorry that you're experiencing that too, Matt. Yeah, I'll see if anyone else mentions it, but let's see. Joshua says that Dead Reckoning is his favorite game to play solo. Oh, this is about the solo campaign question. Yeah. Any favorite campaigns to play solo? The Rise of Fenris. I appreciate the shout out for that. Sleeping Gods. Yeah, Sleeping Gods is one of my favorite campaign games as well. Clank Catacombs solo is also nice with the app support. Martin says that. Merlin Benner says a similar thing about Clank Catacombs. Julio says, what do you think about mechanisms in games that rely heavily on Scout's honor for existence in games where players have to reveal suits and others have to take their word for it? I think it depends on the group a little bit, but and really, I've run into very few instances of anyone purposely cheating in games. But people do make mistakes, and that's okay. It happens. It's interesting. This is one of those things where it's the difference almost between designing a game for casual play versus tournament play. And all of Stonemaier games are designed for casual play, not for official tournaments, even though many of them could and are sometimes played in tournaments. But that said, I play games because I want to play them casually, and I am fine with Scout's honor. Like, it happens on a lot of trick-taking games where, like, if you can only play a card off suit, or you can only play a card if you're short suited. If you don't have any cards of that suit, you can play another card. And so you kind of have to just trust players that they don't have that card in their hand, or cards of that suit in their hand. Works in casual play, doesn't work as well in not casual play. So for the way that I play, the way that I design, and the types of games we publish, I am completely fine trusting people with those sorts of decisions. Even though most of our games, I'm trying to think of any of our games that really take Scout's honor into consideration. I think most of our games, you don't really need that. A lot of open information among our games. But yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm curious how other people approach that as well. Erica says, my osteopath helped me out a ton with her tennis elbow that I had a few years ago. Highly recommend finding a good one or a solid massage therapist. You know, when Megan and I got a couples massage recently, first massage in many, many years. And the masseuse I asked her to focus on my shoulder and my elbow. And I think it made a difference. It felt good, at least while it was happening, and relatively soon afterward. But yeah, I'm glad you had a good experience with both of those as well. Garrett says, we recently got sea salt and paper, and on the box and rulebook, it mentions they use Color ADD. Have you heard of it from the rulebook? Color ADD is a unique, universal, inclusive, and non-discriminative language that enables the colorblind to identify colors. I have seen this in, I think, the game Gnar. Is it an icon-based system, Garrett? I think that's what I've heard of, but I might be thinking of this something else. Let's look up Color ADD. One word, Color ADD. Color is for all. I'll pull it up on the other screen here while I'm looking at it. Color ADD. Yes. Okay. Yeah. This is what I've seen in Gnar as well. I think it's pretty clever. The one thing that I have seen that they didn't seem to account for is that if you look at the cards from different angles, sometimes there's you can mix up the colors. Basically, I don't have an exact example here, but actually, no. This is an exact example. If I look at red from this direction, it is red. But if I look at it from across the table, it is in a different orientation. So it could be mixed up with blue. So they didn't seem to account for looking at things from different angles. But I love the initiative. I love the idea behind it. And I think all they need to do is really just add a little dot in here. Something else to differentiate blue and red from different angles could make a big difference. But yeah, it's a neat system. Really neat system. Darth Grogu says that they love Wyrmspan. I'm glad to hear that. It's very relaxing, and it gives me the same feel as Dominion, and that I just like to try some things out and don't really care what my score ends up at the end. I play Wyrmspan in a very similar way. That's how I play games really in general, but I'm glad you had that experience with Wyrmspan. Chad says, I was getting that pain, then I found the Innova Blizzard Champion plastics. They have micro bubbles in the plastic, making it lighter, so you don't have to throw as hard to get the same distance. Oh, that's neat. It's a good tip. I do think I need to stop throwing as hard. I throw really, really hard to mixed results, and definitely not best for my arm. So I just need to tone that down. I just try to focus on having fun a little bit rather than trying to always have the best shot. Ben says his wife's game store, Odd Willows, is going to be bringing discs into our store and have formed a committee to revitalize our 2 local disc golf courses. Any tips on how to do fundraising with the community? I don't know a lot about this, Ben, but I can say I have very, very little experience with it. Is that, for example, well, this is really my own experience, only experience with it. There is a park in St. Louis that is, there are people who are trying to install a disc golf course in the park. And what their initiative, what they're doing to make this happen is that they are running tournaments once a year until they can raise enough money to make this happen. They're raising tournaments in the park for disc golf where they put up temporary baskets in the park and people pay for the tournament. I've paid for this tournament. It's coming up in a few weekends, I believe. You pay for the tournament and you most of the money raised for it goes towards helping the park, in the hopes that the goodwill from helping the park will help them be willing to install a disc golf course in the park. So that is one way to do it. Also, there are disc golf groups. There's like a Facebook disc golf group in St. Louis, and people have the option of contributing a small amount of money each year to help with the upkeep of various courses. So I don't know if that's helpful at all, but those are things that I've seen that have helped to build community and raise a little bit of money to help out with that sort of thing. And I think it's great that you and your wife are taking that initiative as well. Jeff and Monica are talking about the Scouts Honor mechanism. Sometimes the Scouts Honor mechanism makes trick-taking games grind to a halt and really clunky because it can mess up previously made decisions. That's true. Yeah, especially if you make a mistake, you have to go back and realize, oh shoot, you shouldn't have played that card. What happened there? But the nice thing about most trick-taking games is that they're pretty short. So if someone does make a mistake, that's a mistake. Carol is dropping in from the mill. Good to see you, Carol. I was talking about games that I want to play at Geekway earlier, and I'm excited to play The Witcher and potentially Rurik with you as well, whichever one you're more excited to play. Monkey Butler mentioned Cat in the Box. I read somewhere that it seems if you create a paradox, it's impossible to win overall. Interesting. I don't even know. Scout's Honor may not be necessary in Cat in the Box. Yeah, I don't actually know if it's necessary because the cards don't have suits. I read somewhere that it seems if you create a paradox, it's impossible to win overall. I wouldn't necessarily say that's true. I think it's more difficult to win if you create a paradox, but because you have multiple rounds to make up for it, you can still have a really good hand and come back from it and potentially force someone else into a paradox. So I love the game. I would not say it's impossible to win after you create a paradox. I'd also say that I play Cat in the Box for other reasons other than just trying to win. So if that's your sole motivation, sure, I could see you being frustrated by that. But I think the experience of playing Cat in the Box, the hilarity that ensues from it, is what I enjoy, even if I don't get to win. Mark says, congrats on getting Terraforming Mars as a promo realm for Rolling Realms. I think this is one of the biggest games to have a promo realm ever. Just curious, was it hard to get their yes for this? It wasn't all that difficult. I wonder if it's because they reached out to me. Sometimes companies reach out to me and say, hey, like, are there any of our games that you want to make a promo realm for? And I'm flattered when they do that. A lot of them have come like after we've decided to stop making new promo realms because we have so many that we still have yet to release. And after the Rolling Realms Redux, we'll have so many different realms. So we're probably just going to focus on Stonemaier realms after that. But this one I think was actually pretty seamless, pretty easy to get and work on and get them to sign off on it and things like that. So yeah, I do need to leave myself a reminder though to contact realm companies. I'm just going to make a note here because I am revealing 3 new realms this week, and I want to send those realms in the very near future to the companies who said yes for those realms. I always send them as many as they want, usually around 10. Ian says about tennis elbow, stop Googling and go get a doctor. But doctors take time. I generally, I know I should just go to a doctor for tennis elbow, but I usually try to self-diagnose first and see what I can do then. And if I can't figure it out, I'll go to a doctor. Jeff and Monica says, did I share my chocolate of the day? I think my chocolate of the day is still, well, it's going to be a couple of things. I'm going to have a little bit of chocolate today. I'm going to have a little bit of the chocolate bars that we made with the local chocolatier, Crown Candy Kitchen, because I think people are receiving them this week, maybe even having a nibble or so today. And also I have a little bit of my Eclipse cupcake left, and that does have quite a bit of chocolate in it as well. So that'll be my other chocolate of the day. You can have more than one chocolate of the day, I believe, in moderation. Keith says, with reference to Dominion, do you think there should be a cap to the number of expansions a game should have? What's your ideal number of expansions? Well, I try not to say should about anything if I can avoid it, because my experience, my perspective, my life is going to be different than someone else's life. As a publisher, I have found that and we'll have an exception to this, but I like having trilogies of expansions if there's enough demand for it, and kind of having the story end after 3 expansions. I think that's a nice way to close the door on it. We do have exceptions to that. Viticulture has more than 3 expansions. Size, depending on what you count, kind of has more than 3 expansions. Wyrmspan will have more than 3 expansions, but it will have a cap as well because we're going for a certain number of continents. So I don't want to say should about Dominion, but I think it's largely up to demand. If people are asking for it, if they have enough interest in more expansions, go for it. And even though I say that, but I also think there is some responsibility on the publisher. There have been people who have asked me to make more expansions for Scythe. I think there are people who would be perfectly happy if I made another expansion for Scythe. But I've decided to focus my creative energy and our resources at Stonemaier Games on a sequel to Scythe instead, in the form of Expeditions. And hopefully, well, at least one expansion, maybe more expansions for Expeditions. But so yeah, I think it really depends. It's a mix of like what motivates the publisher, what is motivating the people who are asking for more expansions, and are people even asking for more expansions? Yeah, combination of those things. But for the ideal number of expansions in general, I like the trilogy of expansions. So there's something clean about that, in my opinion. Julio says, so Julio was the one that had the question about Scout's Honor. He says he had an experience that he wasn't fond of, and I wanted to know if you had a similar experience. I can't think of it. Like I've definitely played with people, and I've been someone who has made a mistake myself with something that someone would have noticed if there had been public information. But I can't recall having like a truly negative experience with it. And I'm sorry you did. Yeah. Feel free to share that if you want, if you think that might help other people understand the topic better. But I also understand if you don't want to share that. Carol loves both Rurik and Witcher Old World. She says, Rurik I know better, and I've taught a few times. Witcher I'm still exploring and haven't played much, but love the combination of narrative and other mechanisms. Yeah, I'm very curious. I've heard Carol and other people speak very highly about these 2 games, and so I'm very excited to play them both. Julio does say that, or Julio says today is his wife and his 3-year anniversary. Happy anniversary. 3 years. That's awesome. Megan and I are coming up on our 5-year dating anniversary. But yeah, 3 years of marriage is an amazing achievement. Let's see. Hilda has some ideas for Ben here. Ben's looking to do some fundraising around a disc golf course that he's trying to revitalize in his area of Wisconsin. Hilda says, oh yeah, Hilda mentioned this to me too. This is Hilda speaking. I recently ordered 2 custom putters for her husband's birthday off the Dynamic Disc and Latitude 64 website. I uploaded an original design and they printed and shipped it in about a week. You could maybe have a raffle for a custom disc with the winner's name on it. Then you could order after you pull a winner. It could be a fun prize for the winner and raise money at the same time. We absolutely loved our discs when they arrived. And I might piggyback on top of that a little bit. I think that would be fun for the winner, but to change it even a little bit more so that to differentiate it, well, I don't know if this exactly do it, but I was thinking you could print a few discs with the winner's name, kind of what we do with like the signature disc at Stonemaier Games, so that that person could have their own copy of the disc, but they could know that a few other people might have a copy as well. That might make it feel a little extra special, knowing that other people are throwing your signature disc. That's at least the effect that I'm going on for the Stonemaier discs. Daniel says, is there a Star Realms realm? There should be a Star Realms realm, shouldn't there? But there's not a Star Realms realm for Rolling Realms. Greg says that he enjoyed the Crown Candy chocolate of the day, along with some of the chocolate-covered caramels at our Sunday get-together with friends where we played Wyrmspan and Cosmoctopus. Thank you for getting those, Greg. That's awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed the chocolate and get to try some of the other delicious chocolate from Crown Candy as well. If I could have made the chocolate with nuts in it, I would have, but they didn't have that option. That's my favorite candy from Crown Candy. Joshua says, do the Wyrmspan expansions do anywhere near as well as the base game sales-wise? I don't know if there's any game where the expansions do as well as the game, where it's 100% of sales. But Wyrmspan's expansions sell well relative to the number of copies that we sold of Wyrmspan. I think they sell around 40%. So if we make 100 copies of Wyrmspan, we're going to sell around 40 copies of the expansion. Although that number might have even changed over time because we've made so many copies of Wyrmspan at this point. We have the 2 millionth copy in production right now. So I don't know if that number holds up, but for a while that was the number that I would say, and that was accurate for a little while. And that I think is a lot. I think the average for publishers is probably closer to around 20%. Although it depends on how they sell it too. A lot of publishers maybe go to crowdfunding for the expansion campaign and they resell the game at that time too. People rediscover the game, and so the sales of the expansion are more closely tied to the core game if they do that. Ray says he'll push back against the necessity of the doctor idea for a tennis elbow, which I'm happy to entertain this. He says, I had tennis elbow pretty bad from a job I had. One repetitive arm movement made around 200 times per day for a whole summer. And I got one of the arm bands I recommended. This allowed me to continue working without pain. I also did light stretches and took it easy while not working, and it got better on its own. I am very happy to hear that, Ray, especially for you and hopefully for me too. Because I'd like to try something like this at first, like the arm band you suggested. And if it doesn't work, I'm open to going to a doctor. If it does work, that's great too. Oh no. So Alan, I heard a lot of people getting caught in traffic after going to see the eclipse. And it sounds like Alan had this. He says, driving for work from Jonesboro, Arkansas to Memphis, Tennessee took 6 hours instead of one and a half. Don't want to see another eclipse come. I'm so sorry to hear that, Alan. That is a long commute. Megan had a little bit of that experience. She drove down about a 2-hour drive down south from St. Louis to see the eclipse in totality. And had a great day hanging out with friends and doing eclipse stuff down there. But then the drive back took around 3 hours. Much better than what you experienced here. And this was all on Monday, too. So I wonder if people... What, Megan? 4.5. Not 3. 4.5. Okay, so it took more than twice the amount of time to get back. That is a lot longer. But still not the 6 that you experienced, Alan. And you weren't even doing eclipse stuff. You were just trying to go to work. Sean mentions there's been some great player-created content to expand the Stonemaier Games. I'm glad you mentioned this, Sean. Yeah. In addition to stuff that, and this goes back to that Dominion comment as well, that there is the potential for a game to live on after the publisher has stopped making expansions if fans release free fan-made content for the game too. And I think that's a wonderful way for the game to live on. Yes, it doesn't quite feel as official. It doesn't quite look as official, but there's some great gameplay stuff that can happen then that is fan-created. Monkey Butler says, several years ago, a friend also mentioned not playing to win a game. I found this fascinating, as the point of a game is to win. I would really enjoy an in-depth blog on not playing to win. That's an interesting question. I don't typically blog about that sort of game thing, but I could do a video about it. I don't know if I have that much to say about it, but it's just different motivations. Like for me, you're right that like the definition of a game is that there is a win condition and a loss condition. That's what differentiates a game from an activity. But I think everyone, as I'm sure you can understand this, everyone has different motivations for why they play or why they have fun playing games. Some people play to win. That is purely the reason they play games. They either win or they lose. That is their objective for the game. Others play because they want to have fun social time with other people. Some play solo because they want to have that creative problem solving time playing solo. I often play games. One of my motivations is because I want to try different things. I want to try different ways to solve a puzzle. And I do try to win. Not my motivation, but my goal is still to win. But I'm having fun doing things that are different than when I'm trying to like build something, build a strategy, do something that's different than the last time I played. And I've had to learn this as a publisher about motivations because there are players who will find a way to win. And even though it is not fun for them to do that same thing every time, they will do that same strategy every time. A thing maybe they find that's broken. They will do the broken thing even though it is no longer fun with them because it will lead them to victory. Which that is baffling to me, but I know there are players out there that do that. That would rather do the same thing every time, even though it's boring and not fun for them, if it will lead them to a victory, rather than trying something different that will lead to a different experience, but they may not win if they do that. So I've tried to learn that as a publisher. There are different types of people that play our games and trying to cater to all of them. There's a blog that does exist on this topic called Cardboard. I believe it's Cardboard Architects. Let's see if they're still around. Cardboard Architects. I might be remembering this incorrectly. I don't see this blog anymore, but they had a great taxonomy of different types of gamers and what motivates people to do different things. There's a similar taxonomy in Magic the Gathering, different people who build their decks in different ways in Magic the Gathering. Eric says, I'd assume Milwaukee has a disc golf club. This is in reference to fundraising to revitalize a local course in Wisconsin. Get in contact with them. They probably work with the local parks department. And if you show interest in improving those areas, chances are they'll help as well. Tournaments, work days, getting local sponsors are also good fundraising steps. Thanks, Eric, for mentioning that. I know Eric's been very involved in those elements of St. Louis, of keeping our courses beautiful here in St. Louis. Carol says, we have a game day in a couple of weekends that I have the Stonemaier chocolate for the tree. That's awesome. Yeah, I love hearing that, pairing the Stonemaier chocolates with a Stonemaier game or game days. Thanks for doing that, Carol. Nick 1700 says, it looks like trading card games are in a resurgence. Beyond Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! There's been Lorcana, Star Wars, many anime IP-based TCGs. Do any of these catch your eye as a primary draft MTG player? Yeah, I'm glad you acknowledge that. Yeah, that's the primary way that I play Magic the Gathering is I do a draft. I mean, not every time, but oftentimes when a new set comes out. I have played Lorcana a few times. I have a box. Megan and I mostly just played it on the first weekend that it came out. And I've played Star Wars, the new Star Wars Unlimited game a few times. I have a few packs there where I think we actually need to open. No, we opened all the packs. I need to get maybe some new packs and add them to the decks. But as draft, I would love to play Star Wars or Lorcana in draft. I've not gotten to play them in draft yet, and I would love to do so to see how that goes. Yeah. So those are the main ones, the Lorcana and Star Wars. I think thematically, those excite me the most. But I can see if I was really into a specific anime that I might want to try that one. But yeah, and I've also heard good things about sorcery. I've played a little bit of Flesh and Blood, not draft, but I'm curious about sorcery. It looks very old school in the way that the aesthetic of it looks really neat. And Altered. I did back Altered, but just for the starter packs, not for enough to do a draft of Altered. But I would be curious to try that too. Yeah, if anyone else has opinions about this, what trading card games are you enjoying in draft format? And specifically draft. I know when trading card games or CCGs are mentioned, people think that you have to spend a lot of money to get into it. But you can just buy a draft set, open those packs, play it as a draft, and then use those same cards to create a cube where you can draft them in the future if you want. So they don't necessarily have to require a big investment of money. You can just play as draft. You can just use those cards to construct decks and have fun with that if you want. Oh no, I didn't know about this. Miles got a flat tire on the way back from the Eclipse, and that made it 6 hours to get home. I'm so sorry, Miles. That must have been quite a day. I'm sorry about that. That's terrible. Hopefully the girls were okay. Cody has a good line for this. It's better to play and lose than never to have played at all. And I'll add to this, Cody. I saw a great quote a while ago. I'm probably going to misquote it here, but the quote was that the object of any game isn't to win. The object of the game is to be invited to play again. And that really, I've really taken that to heart because I'm sure, well, my experience is there have been games that I've played, both sports and tabletop games, where I have not been in the best mood. I try not to let that happen. I try not to let my mood or my gameplay negatively impact the experiences of the other people at the table. But sometimes it has happened. And hearing that quote when I first started, I can't remember who said it. It's on a blog post that I have somewhere. I can probably find it and attribute it properly there. But when I heard that, I was like, that is a great way to look at games, especially playing games with other people, that the object of the game isn't to win. That's part of it. That can be part of the fun that you find from it, but rather to get invited to play again, to have so much fun, to be a part of the fun that everyone is experiencing and not to impede anyone else's fun so that you can be invited back to that table and be welcomed back at that table again. I thought that was a neat way of looking at why we play games. Toby points out that tabletop RPGs are a great example of games that aren't played to win. They're played for the story. They're played for the journey. They're played for the collective experience with the other players. Definitely. Yeah, that's a great point. Jeff says, when can we all meet Megan on a live stream? Megan, you want to pop up and say goodbye on the live stream? I'm catching her off guard here. She'll probably say no, but maybe in the future. Megan has been on one of them. I think she was, I don't know if she was on the live stream, but she was on a video very briefly one time. She gets I think she gets a little nervous. She doesn't really enjoy it. So I don't want to make her do that if she doesn't want to. But the option's always out there. She knows she's always welcome to join in. And Jeff also asked about what are Megan's favorite games. There is a video. Oh, Megan's looking very shy off camera here. You want to come say hi and bye? Okay, Megan's going to come say hi and bye. We're going to sign off and do lunch today. But if I missed any questions, feel free to post them in the comments. Yeah, so Megan's going to say, so this is Megan who got to see the eclipse the other day. Megan's just going to pop in and say hi the other day. So Megan corrected me that she was going to drive down to, it was a 2-hour drive there and then 4.5-hour drive back.
It was 3 hours down.
3 hours drive. Yeah. Okay. But she did get to see the totality. What was your favorite part about it? Do you have anything?
I mean, just the sun and the moon.
Yeah.
In front of each other, it had such a cool glow to it when the moon was completely over it. It had kind of almost a star-like glow, which of course the sun is a star, but it was just, yeah, it's very special. Very cool.
And Megan had, I kept seeing photos of what they were doing. So they weren't just like looking at the sky. They had a bunch of people there who were really excited about it. And they made food and drinks that were themed after the eclipse. So I was a little jealous when I saw the good food and the good drinks. And just that, I found that if I'm with a bunch of people who are really excited about something, even if I'm not as excited about it, that it is just contagious to be a part of that energy. And you were already excited about it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
Science is cool.
Well, on that note, science being cool and awesome, which I agree with, we're going to sign off for the day. But thank you, Megan, for joining us to say goodbye. I hope you all have a great Wednesday. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.